Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the United Front Football Podcast. Take two was better. We are going to be doing our end-of-season kind of roundup and awards tonight. Obviously, we've been going through the entire season from pre-season. We will look forward to the Euros eventually, but today we're going to be having a look at the season that's just gone. Have a bit of a... I was going to say like a bit of a wrap-up, but it might be a bit of a mutual hug of how crap we've been, our respective teams, and convince ourselves that the next year is going to be even better.
Always.
Yeah, and we'll have like as I mentioned, our end-of-season awards as well. So we'll get it started. Season roundup. So City have won the title again. Well done. Enjoy that. What a sad little life. You and your 115 charges. But Arsenal have done better last year. I have said like previously, like if Arsenal don't win the title, is it really progression? I think it's fair to say that they've not won anything. Lol. But they have improved on last year. I think in terms of consistency, in terms of like how they've gone through the season, they've not only been better. I'd argue they've probably been the most consistent side. Like, from the start of the season to the end of the season, they didn't really kind of peak massively, but they have never kind of dipped below very, very good. Where Man City looked a bit shaky at times, but did the Man City thing of having all the best players and having a mutant up front who scores 25 goals when he's having a bad year. Like, what can you do in that kind of situation? Villa, Champions League, massive for them, even though like a pretty disappointing performance last day of the season. I think everyone will agree. And 3 promoted seasons go down, probably the worst representation of promoted sides in Premier League history. Everybody keeps saying that the Premier League is the most competitive league. If you look at the points drift, I mean, you could have got 30 points this year and stayed up. I think it was. It used to be 40. The teams at the top tend to just keep winning and winning and winning. The fact that we're getting winners now with 90 plus points, and even people not winning the title with 90 plus points in the past few years, I think it just it shows that the teams at the top, more often than not, are kind of just running away with it and kind of battering all the teams below them. And I think that drift of cash as well as the points drift is the reason for it. Obviously, you've got results like Palace, Villa, but I think that just shows kind of like, honestly, outside of the top 2, maybe outside the top 3, the quality isn't really there. Like, Chelsea have been poor all year. Man United could have finished 7th and have had the worst, they're literally their worst season of all time. Well, in Premier League history anyway. It feels like all time, I'll give you that.
Not quite relegation, but
not quite relegation. But when you consider it, like teams that could have still got European football or still got Europa League football, who have been that bad, I think it really does show like the difference in terms of the quality of the other teams. In terms of West Ham's season, finishing 9th, I think it was.
9th,
quite a few points off Man United by the end of it. But I mean, we've talked about the performances over the course of the season. How are you feeling now that the Davy Moyes era is actually over? How are you feeling about? I mean, I think he's not been confirmed yet, but the new manager looks like he's coming in, Lopetegui. Do you trust the club to back him properly, to bring in the right players for him? I think you've got a solid base. We've talked about it. You've got a good squad there. Maybe they just need to be allowed to play a bit more.
You know what? I think if you'd asked me a few months ago, I would have said no. But all the noises coming out of the club right now sound really positive in that regard. I think our technical director, Tim Steiden's sort of been given assurances that he's leading the ship now in terms of player recruitment. And by the sounds of it, Lopetegui's more than happy to work under that under those circumstances. I think his official title is going to be head coach. So I think that sort of tells you what sort of direction we're going in, which is great that we're finally starting to enter the 21st century. So makes a change.
Us both, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's nice. It's going to be nice to go from that. Like, because obviously it's not that it's a guarantee to it's not going to guarantee success or anything, but having like 4.5 years of David Moyes, who, like I've always said, has done a very good job, but has always felt very old school in the way he's done things. Like, he's wanting to manage the entire club, wants to scout the players, decide on the players and all this, and take training and everything. Like, very much an old school Alex Ferguson mentality of it, I suppose, right?
He's doing like a football manager save. He's probably negotiating contracts as well.
Yeah, honestly, most likely. So yeah, going from that to this setup with Lopetegui, I think there is a plan in place. It sounds like, and again from the sounds of it, we're already out there working on new signings coming in. There's rumours that he's very impressed with the youth players that we got coming through. And obviously, we saw that the other week. George Earthy, obviously after having that disastrous debut, we got knocked unconscious by Edson Alvarez's ass. To come back in his next game and obviously get his first goal in the last home game of the season was great. Got some minutes against City as well. And again, like I've said all season, how highly rated our youth team, our academy team, as our under-21s are. So with us not being in Europe next year, and maybe having to replace like Lucas Paqueta being the big one, and bring in a few other players to replace the players who are going out of the club, having the option to bring youth players in as well, just it makes us less reliant in the transfer window. At least in terms of getting squad players, it means we can just focus on getting players in who will improve the first team. And then the bench can be made up of your George Earthys, your Lewis Orfords and people like that who can, like you said before, get like 10, 15 appearances throughout the season and just give them that development. So yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to next season. Like, it's because I don't know what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like with the last 4.5 years of Moyes, you kind of had an idea of how it's going to go, like in terms of what players we're going to try and buy and how we're going to approach every game. Whereas now it's a new head coach. We've got a director of football in charge of recruitment. And we've obviously for the first time in 3 years not having European football. That's going to be a shame, but it also means we can just sort of focus on the league and getting back in those European places, which, like I said the other week, Lopetegui is a good enough coach to definitely pull that off. Like, he's not he's not this terrible manager that a lot of people make him out to be, especially Wolves fans.
I mean, you don't become the Spain manager and get the Real Madrid job if you're a bad manager. Yeah. Obviously, it didn't go well at Real Madrid, but you don't get considered for it and hired in that position if you're not a good manager. And what you say about the European stuff, like not having European football, we saw how well it worked with Arsenal. It lets you clear decks a little bit, like get rid of a few of those players that you need to. Obviously, Paqueta's likely to leave, but you'll get a nice fat 60 million for him, I think it is, or 65 mil, whatever it is.
85 is the release.
85.
Yeah.
So if you can reinvest that back into the team, and get a younger centre back and a new striker, and as long as you can keep Kudus and build around that as well, and Bowen as well, obviously, build around that and allow kind of. Just get a great starting 11, maybe like 12, 13, and bring a few kids up, let them play. But you're only going to be playing one game a week unless it's Cup week.
Exactly.
So like it worked great for Arsenal. Allowed them to develop players like Saka and what's his name, Gabriel, the other winger.
Oh, Martinelli.
That's the other one. I always want to say Gabriel Magalhaes, but it's not him. It's the other. I always get it mixed up.
Too many Gabriels.
Too many Gabriels, yeah.
But yeah, it's as I say, it's exciting in that regard. And like you say, Arsenal's a great reference because it's like Arsenal were coming off the back of coming out of the Wenger era, and they obviously had that little spell with Emery. Whereas what they really needed was a hard reset. I don't think West Ham are quite there, but with the amount of players that are going to be departing the club in the summer and just 4.5 years of David Moyes, it's for West Ham. It is a little bit of an era for us. Like, it's a manager who's been very successful by our standards, won us a trophy and got us in Europe for like 3 years in a row. I think to now go into an era where it's going to be a new manager with fresh ideas and, like I say, an opportunity to sort of start the next chapter of the club's history in the sense of building the next squad and stuff. I think fans should be optimistic. Like, there's no point going into next season being all doom and gloom, because like what's that going to achieve for anyone? So just go into it, see what happens, and then inevitably we'll get Man City away on the first game of the season, and all the hope will crumble. So
because all their charge is going to get brought up in this summer, and they'll be down in Cheshire League. So
fingers crossed. Yeah,
just kind of touching on that. Like, Man City won the title yesterday, and it feels like everyone's over it already. Like, and a lot of the narrative that I'm seeing of it, and a lot of the discussion on it, it feels like. It really is starting to feel like, well, of course they did because they've cheated. Like, from a lot of sides of things. It's like, I've seen like Zealand's done a video on it. Like, I've seen listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of radio call-ins and stuff. And there does seem to be this, you've won, but at what cost? Like, they've got brilliant players and they've got a great manager and they play great football. It's like, it should be and I know I'm trying to take myself away from being a Man United fan with this,
of course.
But like, it should be like, look how good this team is. Look how well they're doing. But it feels like everyone they're nobody's no neutrals team. Like no one likes them. It is almost like the evil empire. And it's on the flip side of that, it's almost like a damning thing of how much people didn't want Arsenal to win it, even though they're up against the evil empires. Like, damn, AFTV's really done them bad. Like, I'm putting this squarely on Robbie and the boys. Like, what the reason that nobody wants them to win? But yeah, like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like it is a bit like a tainted success with it? Like, I know I make jokes and meme about it all the time, but like, there is that side of it of, well, yeah, of course you've won it because you've been cheating. Like,
yeah, I honestly feel hollow. Yeah. Even if obviously, like the charges being there is a massive asterisk, and like we've always said that, right? But even just to remove the charges for a second, I think I'd still feel this way, just because it's like how I imagine most people look at League One when PSG won it again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not it doesn't feel like an achievement. Like you said, I put myself through the misery of watching the game just to see, just on the off chance we might do something. But like, after like 20 minutes, it's 2-0. It felt like an end of season game where they were just winning the last home game of the season. There wasn't this like electric sort of atmosphere in the sense of like, we're about to win 4 league titles in a row, and Premier League titles in a row. It's never been done, and it just felt like I won the league game. Cool, we do next week. Do you know what I mean? There's no sense of achievement there. There's no sense of emotion really to it, and I didn't even feel that from the City fans watching the game in the stadium. Like, I know they tried to do a pitch invasion at the end, but it just felt false.
Yeah,
it's just everything around it just feels so sterile and so like.
It's manufactured. Like,
manufactured.
It's a it's a manufactured club, right? Like, and I know like City fans go, "Oh, we've got tons of history." They do.
Yeah, they do.
They've got tons of history, but also it's like, I mean, at least when Abramovich came into Chelsea, he was building on a club that had recently won stuff, and like, yeah, they weren't a powerhouse, but they'd won FA Cups and like they'd done stuff in the past. With Man City, like, they'd come up from the third tier, like, and there wasn't really a lot going on, and yeah, like. The beat Man United with Benyani, like, okay, great, like that was like a massive achievement for them, but that was like Palace beating Villa, it's like, okay, it's a shock result. When you just pump like money from an oil nation into a club to artificially manufacture this kind of thing, it's not to take anything away from the achievements of the players, because they're still great players doing what they do.
Yeah.
It's just questionable where they're getting paid from, like, and the circumstances that they've all been assembled together, and it's a shame for English football, I think, I think so, when you're shining light, when your best team, the dominant team in the league, has got so many asterisks next to it. It's got so many questions over it. It's got, are they going to get charged with this stuff? Like, are they paying their players properly? Well, like, where's all this money coming from? And are they just a sports washing machine? Like, well, we can't really argue that it's not. And it's just one of those questions over it. And I think to compare it to PSG is the perfect comparison, because like, everybody wants PSG to lose. No one wants them to win the Champions League. No one wants them to do that stuff. Man City did the treble last year, and it felt like everyone had forgot about it after 3 days.
Yeah, like, it felt, honestly, and maybe I'm aware that I'm in my West Ham bubble. I'm aware of that. But just going off reactions on social media and YouTube and everything, I feel like there was a bigger reaction to West Ham winning the Conference League than it was to City win the Champions League.
100%. And that's coming from my side. Like, and I kind of catch some of the Man City fans because I'm a Man United fan. So like, there'll be that reaction to people, but like, rarely get anything from that. It's like, these charges aren't going to stick. It's like, well, probably not. Doesn't mean that it's. I mean, a lot of charges don't stick that should. just in real life, That's not the flex you think it is.
No.
And
O.J. Simpson flex, I think that's.
If I did it, yeah.
Yeah.
If I did it, if I got away with these 115 charges.
Yeah, if we were to commit massive financial fraud in order to,
this is how we do it.
Here's how we would have done it. The Sheikh Mansour story. Like I don't know. It just feels like I don't have the same, despite the argument I had on Twitter the other day, I don't have the same negative feelings toward Arsenal as a lot of people do. I understand why, especially from the West Ham fan base, why none of us want to see Arsenal win the league because of the Declan Rice thing. I get it. Like, but I've even like growing up, I've never looked at Arsenal as like a massive rivalry or whatever. Like, it's always been Spurs, United, and Chelsea, the three clubs that I've like hated.
Yeah,
but
Millwall.
And fucking who cares? Do you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, we might play them in a cup one year, but they're not even in my forefront of my mind. But yeah, like it's.
Well, we City until 2006.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But I've never really had that. Now, obviously, because of the AFTV stuff and the way their fans can be more so than others. Like, yeah, in most normal seasons, I wouldn't want them to win the league. And I've had this conversation and argument with so many people this season where it's like, how can you want Arsenal to win the league? It's like, it's not about wanting specifically Arsenal to win the league. I'm just bored of City winning it. And even like from like somebody yourself, you didn't want to see Arsenal win the league, and loads of people. I think deep down, if they had done it yesterday, you'd have like looked at the celebrations would have been grander, and it just would have felt, not to Nick Liverpool's thing, it felt like it would have meant more. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think that's what it is because Arsenal are a big rival of Man United, obviously through the 90s and the 90s. And because of that fan kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the reason that I'd rather have City win it is because it means nothing. Because there isn't any value to it. It's like, well, you know what? It's funnier if Arsenal don't win it.
Yeah. I get what you mean. I just like, even because
I see it from your side as well, obviously. Like,
yeah, like I was just watching a video. I think it was from the kickoff. They were talking about City winning it again, and they made a really good point about like. So obviously the obvious comeback can be, well, United were dominant for years, like under Ferguson, like maybe not 3-4 in a row or whatever. I think they did 3 in a row. I can't remember, but like
3 in a row twice. Never did 4 in a row.
Okay. Right, yes. But they won, like, you know, the large majority of the time it was them winning the league and stuff. But I made a really good point. United were gettable. Like, United, it never felt like you go into every season thinking it was inevitable that United were going to win it. There was always some form of jeopardy because when they were going up against the Arsenal team from the early 2000s, or going up against Mourinho's Chelsea, even going up against like the very early like Mancini City teams, like there was still, albeit a small bit of vulnerability, but there's still vulnerability about that Man United side. Like that you could go into games believing you could get a result, hence why they're to come, grab so many late winners or late equalizers or whatever, right? Even when Mourinho came in at Chelsea, like they weren't flawless. Whereas this City team, I know they wobbled at the start of the season, but to have that and have it sort of be like, well, yeah, they've won 1 in 4, but they're still probably going to win. They're going to go on a run of like 15 wins in a row in the new year and win the league anyway. Like, from a neutral's perspective, it's just not exciting to watch. It's not exciting to see the season pan out in that way. And like someone asked me the other day, has this season been boring? And it's like, well, I think outside of the title race, like the title race was a little bit exciting, but again, kind of spoiled by the fact that it still felt inconsequential because of what City were inevitably going to do. Outside of that, it felt pretty exciting. But yes, the City winning it every single year, almost like it's a and listen to all Sky now. I get why they have to do it, but sort of dress it up as like, this is amazing. How good is this? Wow, look at like best. It's like, no, it's shit.
Yeah.
Like it's crap to watch. Like, why would you want pick any other sport? Why would you want to go? It's like people complain about F1. I don't watch F1. People complain about it because the same dude wins all the time. Like. Yeah. So at what point is that
same in every league?
Dilutes the sport?
The only league where there's no guaranteed winner is Italy at the minute, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Germany, where the Bayern Munich have just finished 3rd, they'll probably win it next year. Like, it's just it's that blip year. It's like when like the COVID season with City, like it just kind of fell apart. But I agree with you. Like the outside of that, like the race for the top 4 was kind of interesting until basically everyone other than Villa decided they didn't want it, like because just no one could go on a run. Chelsea have disappointingly turned up in 6th because they actually, surprise, when you've got £1 billion squad and a decent manager, you'll find some form at some point. But yeah, I'm with you on it just feels a bit by the process, and add into that as well. Like I catch some stick for my opinion on watching Man City. And it's just a bit boring. Like it's like when they score a great goal, when they score, like it's like cool, that was really good. Now let's watch them pass it backwards and sideways for the next 60 minutes because they'll literally bore people to death. At least when United were winning in the 90s and the noughties, it was counter-attacking, it was swashbuckling,
exactly.
It was like say lots of last minute winners. It was like a mentality over quality a lot of the time as well. Like It was entertaining. And when you have like the greatest Arsenal team in their history, like that early noughties and that early noughties side of Man United, and then Chelsea coming in the mix, it was fun. Like it was a toss up, and the season. I go back to the points drift again. Like everything was a lot closer. More teams could beat each other. There was more likelihood that teams were going to drop points in the last 10 games. Whereas now, like you're looking at what has been a great Liverpool side, nowhere near it, an Arsenal side that is finding their feet at the top of the table, and even then you're going, it's all right. City will win 15 in a row, and they go and win 15 in a row, and win the title. Like they were third favourites at one point. It's like, well,
it's crazy.
Put some money on that.
Well, it's like someone said to me a while back. Like, well, just to touch on Arsenal quickly. Someone said to me a while back, like, "Oh, should Arteta be under pressure if they don't win the league this year, given where what position they are in?" And like you sort of mentioned it yourself, right, in terms of what you said previously about like, oh, is it progress and stuff. I agree with what you said. Like, I think it's difficult to look at this season and say it's not progress, given they are statistically better than they were last season, right, and look a lot more comfortable, like being up there. But like, it's like I said to the guy who made this point to me. It's like you have to basically be 99.9% perfect in order to have a chance of stopping City.
Yeah,
like you can't have in most normal seasons, you could maybe get away with losing to Villa, who are chasing fourth. And you could still probably turn it around. Whereas you don't get that luxury because City would just leap on like the smallest slip. And it's like maybe people can say it's fine margins, but like it doesn't feel very balanced or well weighted in that sense.
When you've got to be perfect for 9 months, it's just it doesn't work.
It's unsustainable. And look, Pep said I know Pep said at the end of the game that, I'm more likely to, I've got one more year left on my deal and I'm more likely to leave than I am to stay. And like I still maintain City's dominance will end when Pep leaves. I do think he's a big factor in it. But even if it opens up to be like a 2-team league or a 3-team league, that's still better than what we got now.
And I think it's a big time if he does go as well, because there's a lot of those players who are going to need replacing. Like there's a lot of talk about a few players leaving this summer. Like you got players like Grealish who aren't getting in the team who could be leaving. You got Kevin De Bruyne who's permanently injured and 33 now. Like there's going to be big parts of that team that are going to be churning over. Wouldn't surprise me if when Pep leaves, like gets fractured a little bit. Maybe Rodri will go, all right, well, it's time for me to go to Real or to Barca or something and be the next Sergio Busquets. Like,
Haaland as well. Like,
well, yeah, like
never, it was never planned for Haaland to stay at City for the rest of his career, was it?
Like, well, I said this in my Discord the other week. Like, it was after after he got called a League Two player, but it was like I maintain he's at the wrong club. To like, he scores 25 goals at a club that he doesn't really fit. If he'd have gone to any other team, if he was in that Liverpool team over Nunez, he'd score 40 goals.
Yeah.
He'd be terrifying. And I wonder how long he's going to stick around to like going, I'm bored of this. I want to go somewhere I can score, like I can actually play football. Because
I want the ball.
yeah. Like, can someone pass the ball in front of me? It's like, nah, it's going back to the defense again. Like the amount of times that I've watched City this year, and it's like, oh, they're building up, they've won it high up, and it's like the first 2 passes are backwards, back to the centre back. It's like, oh, for Christ! Yeah. It's like it takes 3 hours to watch this 90-minute game. So hopefully for everyone's sake, in terms of a competitive league, he does go at the end of his contract. Maybe even this. Maybe he decides if he wins the FA Cup, he goes, "Yep, that's it, I'm off."
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
That'd be great. And then it's all up in the air, because who knows what Liverpool are going to do next year? Who knows what if Arsenal can keep it on?
Yeah, exactly. I do think as well.
Ten Hag actually finds his mind.
Well, let's not get crazy here. Yeah. No, I think as well, just to sort of to end on that, in terms of like the quality of the overall league, I think this season might be, in terms of the overall quality across the whole league, I think this year might just be a bit of an off year in that sense. I think that you've had 3 promoted teams who come up who, one of them just didn't have the quality, went about it the right way, arguably, but didn't really have the overall quality. And you had Sheffield United, who might as well have not bothered, and you had Burnley, who financially tried but just put all their money in the wrong places, really. But I think Newcastle, you can expect them to come back stronger. You can expect Chelsea to be stronger next year. Hopefully West Ham, hopefully like Palace look really exciting under Glasner. Brighton will get a new manager. Like obviously De Zerbi dropped that bombshell before the last day of the season, so Brighton will be in the market for someone new. And if the PSR rules have changed slightly, and there's this new stuff with spending on like the wages and all the new stuff they're introducing basically.
Yeah.
And some higher quality coaching, and I say hopefully less injuries as well. I think that's been a big part of this season. So many clubs have been plagued with injuries all year. Like how can anyone get some consistency?
I think a lot of that's still stemming from the Winter World Cup. Sorry. Obviously, it pushed the end of the season closer, brought the start of the next season closer, and it feels like football hasn't stopped for about 2 years.
Yeah,
because like the season had to start earlier to get the World Cup in, so it caused the bit to be a shorter pre-season, and then there was a shorter pre-season after the World Cup, which brought the season closer. It's felt like 3 years of constant football. I'm not surprised that the players breaking down and not being consistent, and all this kind of stuff. It's granted they're multimillionaires and they have to play 50 games a season, boo-hoo. But at the same time, you need time to recover. Players need time to recover, regardless how much they're getting paid. They're still humans. They'll still need that time to refresh themselves and to be able to keep playing at the high level to earn that money, or else it's all just going to fall apart.
Yeah, and maybe, just maybe, don't fly to Australia the day after the Premier League season then to play some friendlies.
There's that as well. Yeah.
So, idiots. So it's Newcastle as well. Like, is there like, I've had so many injuries. Oh, poor us. We're going to jet off to Australia quickly, play a couple of kickabouts. What are you
Spurs
doing?
have just landed somewhere for some postseason friendlies as well, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the same one.
Is it the same thing?
They've both gone to Australia. Just why?
Yeah, I have a week off, mate. You've not got a cup final.
Yeah.
You Spurs.
Yeah, good thing there's an international tournament coming up.
Yeah. Christ.
Well,
I kind of touched on it a little bit there with the United season and how it's gone for us. I don't really kind of want to harp on about it. We've talked about it all year. It's been shit. We'll see what happens. It feels like the Willy won't he Ten Hag thing is leaning more towards he's staying. Which, to be honest, like I've said it in the past, like after that 4-0 loss against Palace, I was like, if he doesn't lose his job, I'll be amazed. He's kind of like, from the interviews and the last couple of performances, a couple of wins, like it feels like he's wrestled back a bit of it's 50-50. Whereas at this point, I think like the real serious consideration for managers, there's just no one out there that I feel is the right guy for right now.
Seems to be either him or Tuchel, right? That seems to be I know there was like some murmurs today that Tuchel's had some talks, but like I don't think Southgate was ever a genuine, realistic shout, to be honest. So I'd imagine it's
well. There's reasons why the Southgate thing would never happen, right? Because for him to take over at United, he'd have to either leave England before the Euros, or United would have to take a brand new manager in after the Euros, which is basically just before the season starts. So that's not going to happen. He's not going to ditch England, and United aren't that mental to get a new manager in. Just a few weeks before the season starts. So that was never going to be a thing. Now in next year, maybe they give him a year and like to see if Southgate gets a position, or they give him till Christmas to see how it works out. Then maybe that'd happen. God, I hope not. But it feels like he's sticking around. And to be honest, he was I've said it before. He was the right guy when we hired him. He was the one that everybody wanted at that time. He's had a terrible season. But are we at a point now where a manager has a bad season and immediately loses his job, especially when you have to factor in, and I know everyone's had injuries, but you have to factor in the fact that like basically all of the defenders have been injured. We've been playing a 36-year-old Johnny Evans all year, for Christ's sake. Like Casemiro's having to do a shift there. We've got no left backs. Like I actually pulled this up because I've not really thought about it. Like I pulled up last season's league table and this season's. We're 15 points behind where we were last season. We've drawn the exact same amount of games. So there's 5 more losses and 5 fewer wins. We've conceded 15 more goals and scored 1 fewer goal this year. When you factor in that we've had basically none of our first choice defenders, and we have to bear in mind as well, like how important Luke Shaw and Leacher were last year to how we played. Allowing that kind of slightly more kind of man-to-man marking system, and one of them will step into midfield and all that kind of stuff. When you factor that in, it's kind of where it is. Like, if you were to say to me at the start of the season, you're probably going to lose 5 more games, so you got no defenders. You won't have your starting back line for the entire season. It's like, well, maybe, yeah, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
And I had a look at the Liverpool season after they won it, after they won the title with 99 points. They had their defensive injuries. Obviously, Van Dijk was the big one, but I think there was injuries to both fullbacks and like
there was
defenders.
one point Jordan Henderson was playing centre back for him.
We're playing Casemiro there at the minute. They lost 30 points from where they were.
Yeah.
They finished with 69 points the year after. Nice. And so they dropped 30 points from that. And granted, like by the end of the season, I think they pulled it back up to 3rd or 4th. But they had an awful season. So they lost 30% of their points from the season previous. Like, and it's just, there's a very much an A/B thing there. And I know people were bagging on Liverpool for it, but it's a third of your team. Like the most important part of your team, arguably the defense. That's what keeps the goals out. That's where you start all your attacks from. Like when you're missing that for the entire season, I think, like to bring it back to Man United, I think you've kind of got to give him the benefit of the doubt and go, okay, you've got your players back. We know there's a few players leaving. There's going to be a big squad overhaul. We're giving you players. You're not picking them this time. We're getting the right kind of players that we want at the club from a structure that knows what they're doing, especially with Ashworth coming in and all those kind of people. Show us what you can do. You got 12 months. If you do well, we'll talk about a new contract. If not, Gareth Southgate's in the wings.
I was going to say that feels like the biggest. Feels like the biggest thing I think in terms of like the changes behind the scenes at United in terms of like the footballing like sort of infrastructure, because like I suppose if there isn't really anyone available, you can kind of if United approach it right behind the scenes, you can kind of take the risk on giving Ten Hag another year, because like I say, you've got someone else bringing the players in, and there's an idea in mind of like we want these types of players because we want to play roughly this type of football, like not specific to one system, but we want to bring sort of, I don't know, let's say good technical players in because we want to play a style of football where we're controlling games and we're come from possession, whatever. If Ten Hag then doesn't work in like 6 months into the season, you can then start identifying managers. You think, right, who's going to work within this sort of philosophy or in this sort of way of thinking that's going to align with us. And then you haven't got to have a massive squad overhaul like you've had us previously, where it's like you got a Mourinho team, and then before that a Van Gaal team, before that was a Moyes team, and it was a Solskjaer team. Do you know, like you can still change the manager and keep it succinct.
And more than that as well is just getting the right kind of people in, rather than like players and technical abilities and all that kind of stuff. Like the right kind of people, like with the right mentality, the right attitude, the right, because I think that's been one of the biggest things that's been the issue at United. It's not necessarily the quality of the player. It's whether these players work together and have the same kind of drive and the same, want to win. Which is why I am gutted that Casemiro's had such a bad fall off this year, because last year he was mega. He's obviously he's ultimately professional, and even like the interviews he's come out with today and yesterday, like he seems like he still wants to play at a high level, like, and maybe with players around him, it's not like he was getting much help this year. Like maybe the right players around him, it would have been different. We'll see what goes on in the summer. I do think he's going to be off this summer though. Where he goes, whether he goes to like, arguably he could go to a big team in Italy and still tear it up. Like,
massively.
He's still a very good quality player. But having those kind of mentalities, those kind of players at the club, but with the drive of the youth, because you got to look at like a lot of the signings that have been made by Man United, and especially the younger players, just don't seem to like have a drive to win, and getting that back is going to be tough. I think that's one of the things that Arsenal have struggled with, is winning games isn't, obviously winning games is tough, but like overall winning games isn't the hardest thing. It's having that drive to win when it matters, when you shouldn't be winning. Win a game when you're bad, win a title, win a league, win a title, win a cup. Just have that drive to win. And maybe it's just because I've watched that 99 documentary, and it's just maybe it's just maybe sad because I've just remembered how good we used to be. But like having those kind of having those member berries, having that drive to win mentality, like it's hard to build that from not winning. Like,
absolutely,
from a nothing. And United are at a point now where we aren't winners anymore. We've won a few titles. I don't know. We've won a few cups in the last few years. A load of teams would kill for that. But if you're comparing it to where we want to be and where we were, it's miles apart.
Yeah.
It's it's gonna be a big summer, and like you say, if we can bring the right kinds of players in with the right technical ability as well as the right mentality, whether it's Erik ten Hag next year, the year after, or it's someone new coming in at Christmas or the end of next year, then it'll still be the right players. So if you've got the right players there, you just need to find the right guy to guide them.
Do you know what I was saying? I think I just popped in my head now. Eddie Howe?
I think I like Eddie Howe. I don't know whether. I think if he loses his job at Newcastle, it's because he's underachieving.
Yeah,
and I don't know whether United would go for that. Do you know what I mean?
Let's say if it's the end of next season, Newcastle will finish like 5th. They've had another really good season. They've done well in the Conference League. Could win.
When United nick him rather than him getting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be against it.
Because I'm looking at players like Anthony Gordon, for example. I feel like if Anthony Gordon was around in the Ferguson era, that's United signing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and Isak is another one. I think he's like that. I think Bruno Guimaraes is another one who's like that. Like, and he's got a really good track record of working with young players. Good track record of working with He was like this at Bournemouth as well in terms of getting the right, like I say, the right mentality and the right characters into a dressing room and sort of creating this unified. Well, like a team, really. Yeah. Like Newcastle, I know they've had their problems this season. Again, loads of injuries and the Tonali thing, but they've never once felt like a fractured team. Do you know what I mean? It all feels very together and very everyone singing off the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
And Eddie Howe is still a young manager. Like, this is only his second job in the Premier League, really, after Bournemouth.
Yeah, well, you got to bear in mind, like he was in his 30s when he took over at Bournemouth, wasn't he? Like,
yeah,
took over very young.
And he's shown that he's able to still develop as a coach. Like, all the criticisms from his time at Bournemouth were he's not been that great in the transfer market and his team can't defend. Gone to Newcastle, granted with more money, but his signing's been better. And last season they won the best, I think maybe the best defence in the league.
Yeah, they were phenomenal.
So
the only downside with him is Jason Tindall.
Can you imagine Roy Keane seeing Jason Tindall try and handshake everyone going,
oh god,
smash a chop.
God,
make it happen. I'm all way for it. I'm all way for it.
Well, we've covered our teams, and I think, like I said, we've covered our teams plenty over the course of the year. We're not going to be
giving City a good kick in as well. So.
Yeah, we've done the important stuff. Should we move on to our awards for the year?
Let's do it.
So we've had a bit of a think, and there's a lot of like just the standard stuff. I'm going to try and have a bit of, a few options for each one, but I think I'm pretty set on my ideas for this. Should we start out though with the Housery Award, the one that was kind of not necessarily designed by us, but recommended to us? We should have the Neal Maupay Shithouse of the Year Award.
Yes, absolutely.
Now I've kind of spread my net like to a bit more European football. Obviously, Emi Martinez is always up there with his shithousery. His antics against Lille in Europe were fantastic once again. Only made better by the fact he actually threw the ball in the net last week. I love it when stuff comes back to bite people like that. And also on the last day of the season, yesterday, was it the fans were spreading around that there was an equaliser, a West Ham equaliser. Yeah. It was Everton spreading it around. Yeah. So fair play, like to Everton. Obviously, the Neal Maupay has rubbed off on the fans from his time at Everton, and then trying to convince the Arsenal. The amount of people that I saw delighted in Arsenal shirts. Until the realisation set in. It was fantastic.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone's ever had as much faith in West Ham before, other than yesterday. It was like, I'll definitely get a result with City. Come on, Moisey. Like, you're delusional. Like, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, so that was fantastic for me. I've got to give it to Paulo Dybala, though. So I'm spreading it out into Europe. Paulo Dybala and Guendouzi. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have,
yes. So where he pulls out his shin pad and he's got a picture of him lifting the World Cup on it. It's like Homer Simpson. That is fantastic. I don't know what it is about Argentinians, but they get shithousery 100%.
It's so good. There was, because I've seen that clip and like Guendouzi's like giving it whatever. And the thing that what makes it so good is Dybala. It's so casual.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh yeah. Remember this? I was against you a lot, that was. And you see Guendouzi's face just drop.
Yeah. That was fantastic for me. I had a look around a few bits and bobs. I think there's some good Jordan Pickford ones. Like, the thing, he's very Marmite, Jordan Pickford. But I'm a big fan of him being a shithouse at the end of games when he's killing time. And he'll catch the ball and then dive on the floor. Like, completely oversell it. And it's like, oh, bravo, mate.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Really get their backs up with that. I don't know if you've got anyone you want to add.
I think the only one one of the ones that came to mind, it was actually Neal Maupay. It was when he scored at Spurs and did the James Maddison dart celebration.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great. It's twofold wise. It's great because he does that, and Maddison, like, he completely balls Maddison's piss, like it kicks off on the pitch and stuff. And I think after the game, Maddison tweeted something like, probably hasn't scored enough goals in the last couple of years for his own celebrations. He has to copy mine, which is great. But then Maupay just uploads the picture of him doing the celebration on Instagram, just the caption saying, more goals and less relegations in my career than James Maddison. We go again Monday.
I was going to say, Maupay's Twitter game is pretty good. His social media game is on point.
Oh, I can't remember what it was. That was it. It was when Anthony did I mentioned it the other week, when Anthony celebrated in front of the Coventry players, and Maupay just shared it and went, even I wouldn't do that.
Self-awareness. Big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan of Neal Maupay.
But I think Dybala takes it. Has to. That's so good.
That was brilliant. That year. All right. Well, on to the actual real football opinions and awards, I guess. We'll start off, I guess, with let's go big from the start. Player of the year. We're going to talk Premier League Player of the Year. There's been loads of really good standout players this year. Obviously, it's good, like a lot of Arsenal players, a lot of City players. Saka's been really good all year. I think. I don't know what it is with the love to hate Saka. I think it does kind of come from the Arsenal fan thing again, though, where it's like he can't just be a good player; he's got to be the best winger in Premier League history.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like the reaction to that. I think a lot of people, but Saka's brilliant. He's had a fantastic season. He is. I think he's still only like 22, isn't he? Like the sky is the limit for that kid, as long as his legs don't come off.
I'll say Arsenal need to buy a right winger in the summer.
Yeah.
He's played like 80 games this season.
They're just going to Jack Wilshere him.
Yeah.
He's going to be. His knees are going to be gone by the time he's 26.
Learn your lessons, Arsenal. Just give him a hand. Come on.
Yeah. But from the Arsenal side as well, Declan Rice could be up there for signing of the season. Phenomenal. Speaking of mentality earlier, drive to win. Even though obviously, he wasn't winning loads of stuff with West Ham. Won a European trophy though.
So he's won more than most of the Arsenal squad.
Well, yeah. Flex on that. Leave it on there for a minute.
Leave that one to marinate.
But as you were saying earlier, like Eddie Howe is doing kind of a lot of Fergie style transfers. Fergie would not have let him go to Arsenal. He would have been in that Man United midfield because he has that mentality. Great player, and he has been a big game changer for them. I think he's a big reason why they've been a lot more consistent this year, a lot more solid. Ødegaard, one of the best players in the league, fantastic. Like whenever he plays, I hate using that kind of he's a Rolls Royce of a player cliche, but he makes everything look easy. He doesn't do anything too flashy, but he picks good passes. He knits things together really well. Scores important goals, assists important goals. Really good player. And then up to Man City. Weirdly, I don't think there's been that many standout players for Man City, but there's two that have been phenomenal for me. I think Phil Foden, he's shown how good he is in the past in brief spells. This is the first year where I think he's gone, now I'm the main man now. Yeah. This is my team. This is I am world class now, and he has shown it. He's scored a ton of goals, got a ton of assists. He seems like he's the first name on the team sheet, especially with the injuries to De Bruyne, like I was mentioning earlier. Stepped up and kind of not necessarily dragged City to the title, but been one of the key components of that City side that has gone and won the title again. No two ways about it, and it's a shame for the players with all the hoo-ha over the club and these charges and what's happened and how they're owned and all this stuff, because they're still fantastic players playing great football. It's not their fault. They're just playing football, and he's playing football for his childhood club as well. So fair play to him. And he give him his flowers. But for me, in terms of importance to the team and how much they lose when he's not in it, it's got to be Rodri for me. I think he's stepped up year on year. He's got better and better. And it's not only they didn't lose, they've won 17 on the bounce or whatever, or didn't lose for 27 games when he's played, or whatever the numbers were, I can't remember. It's just he's the bedrock that allows that Man City team to do everything that they do. Granted, I said earlier it's boring football. I'll maintain that, but he is the main linchpin. He's the cog of that. He snuffs out danger. He plays the first pass. He knows where he needs to be. He fills in gaps. And his importance is shown by like the difference with and without the winning percentages. He's every bit as important to that Man City team as Busquets has been or was for Barcelona. Because it was the same thing. When he wasn't there, you saw it. Like when he was 36, 37, legs have gone. He was still a key component of that team because no one else could do what he did or do what he does. I think it's the same with Rodri. And for me personally, like that's why I'd give him the Player of the Year, just because he is so deathly important to that team. And how well he
wasn't even nominated, was he? Like the official like Player of the Year. I don't think he was.
Well,
it's always
forwards, isn't it?
Yeah, which is like crazy. But
another player I do want to mention actually is Ollie Watkins. I think Ollie Watkins has been absolutely outstanding this year. Tons of goals. I didn't realize how many assists he's got.
Yeah, man. Just Ulmer complete forward, isn't he? Like,
he just plays every week. Plays hard every week. Scores a ton of goals. He's added that clinical goal scorer into his game, but also sets him up for everyone else. I think he's got double digit. I think it's like 15 assists, maybe 12 assists.
Yeah,
20 odd goals. Like he's had an outstanding year. And as well, actually, I've got to mention on the same token, Palmer at Chelsea. Yeah. For the exact same reason. In a very underperforming Chelsea side, to put up the numbers that he has and the performances he has, fantastic. But yeah, for me, like I say, for my reasons previously put out, it's got to be Rodri.
No, it's difficult to disagree. I think Rice is probably second behind Rodri, I think, for Player of the Year, and Watkins maybe third. I'm thinking about Foden though, aren't I? Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because Foden has been, like you say, it's been exceptional. I think someone said it the other day, like it's, even though he's been in the City team for a long time now, this feels like a real breakout year for him because he's always sort of been in and out the team. Like he's had a few months where he's on the team sheet consistently and then he'll get dropped and everyone goes mad about it. Whereas this year, literally undroppable. Like,
you know what it reminds me of, and I know I used to play more consistently. As a Man United reference, it reminds me of that year that Ronaldo went from 10 goals, 10 assists to I've scored 30 goals. And he's done it, and he's won and he's done it again. He's winning the Ballon d'Or. He's going to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Like it feels like that penny drop moment. It's like I'm not a kid anymore. I'm 23, 24. Like I'm a man now. Like and I'm gonna. This is my era now. It feels like that penny drop.
If he's good, it's scary. Like I say, he's only like 23, 22. He's going to kick on and be an exceptional player for the next sort of 10 years or so. It feels like, and at the right time as well. Because like I say, De Bruyne, no guarantee how probably he's got one more year left in him, maybe like 2 at a push, but he's not going to be around forever, and he's definitely not going to be as influential, I don't think, as the years go on, or maybe not influential, but not in the starting 11 as much as he would have been over the last couple of years. And I think Foden's going to take that mantle, and he's just showing everyone he's got the capabilities of doing it. I agree with echo everything you said on Rice. I think I said earlier in the season that I think he's improved Arsenal more than they've improved him. And I conceded last week. I think that's now starting to swing back they're having a positive impact on him because he's chipping in with more goals, more assists. He's playing a number of positions in that midfield, be it the holder or like the sort of more dynamic box to box, so he can get forward and get back and do everything, and just. Yeah, he's adding more and more to his game, and he's becoming the player that I think every West Ham fan said he was going to be. And
he's just a complete midfielder now, isn't he? Like, I think that's the thing.
He's unbelievable.
He's not got a weakness now. He's not. Yeah. He's not as creative as a Foden or De Bruyne, or he's not as. But I think he's got more strings to his bow. Like he's a great defensive midfielder. He's a great attacking midfielder. He's good at linking up. He's physical. He's strong.
I think Kevin Nolan said last season he's the closest thing we've had to a Steven Gerrard since Gerrard. Like less like less like. I'm not saying he's as good as Gerrard was. Like I don't think he personally is, and I still think he's a different type of player to Gerrard. But in terms of the similarities are there. I think if you're looking at the sort of English midfielders like Bellingham, Foden, and Rice, I think Rice is more close to Gerrard than he is like a Lampard or a Scholes, right? So, yeah, he's been mega for Arsenal this year, and it will likely only get better. But yeah, I'd probably give it to Rodri as well. Like you say, it's just it's ridiculous how good of a footballer that man is. Just makes elite level football look like a piece of piss.
I think that's the
easiest
thing.
job in the world,
and that's always the like. I think more defensive players, and I'll roll defensive midfielders into that, never tend to kind of get the plaudits they deserve because they're not scoring loads of goals or getting loads of assists or whatever. Like you'll get the odd one where it's like Van Dijk has a standout season, and I think Vidic won Player of the Year a couple of years, like when he was lights out best defender in Europe. But other than that, it's always the forwards. Like they score the goals, they do the flashy stuff, they or wingers or whatever, and how easy he makes the game look is just testament to how good he is as a footballer. I think he walked into any team in the world and not just get in it. I think he makes them a better team, which is very annoying.
Yeah,
we'll move from the player of the season to another position on the pitch. It's at the side. Manager of the season. Now, it's easy to go, oh, Pep because he's won the title, Arteta because he's challenged him. And don't get me wrong, like they've done great jobs. Everyone knows that. I wanted to have a look at something like a bit beyond that, like either managers who've changed the team's fortunes or done something spectacular. And for me, like there's a few. I think Andoni Iraola has come into a Bournemouth side that a lot of people thought were going to go down. After the first few weeks, that looked nailed on. I think now that since he's got the ideas into the players, got a bit of consistency, got like the players knowing what they're supposed to be doing, they're playing really good football. And I think his fingerprints are all over it. He seems like a likable guy. I think he's done a fantastic job with a squad that arguably any other year would have been challenging for relegation, and he's got him a comfortable mid-table finish. I think they play some really exciting football as well. Got a lot of pace, and speed and trickery out wide. They've always got Dom Solanke, who's had a breakout year. He scored 20 goals, I think. I'm kind of excited to see what they do next year. What kind of players they can not only keep hold of but add to, and like to improve that squad and see what he can do. Because I think he's done a fantastic job.
I really want to see a full season of Alex Scott being injury free. Yeah, like really exciting player, and he's not really had the luck with injuries this year, but there was a little period, like a month of the season, where he came into the team and he was looking really, really promising. So I think he could be mega for Bournemouth next year. I think
he kind of came back into it at the end of the season as well, didn't he? But again, I think he's only 19, isn't he? Like he's got plenty of time.
As
long as he does, it's not like a recurring injury. I think he'll be an exciting one to watch. Another one like who's kind of done a similar job, and ironically was at Bournemouth. I think Gary O'Neill went to Wolves. I had Wolves for going down. Just the sheer amount of players that they'd lost. Obviously, the fact that Lopetegui had gone, and as good a job Gary O'Neill did at Bournemouth, they decided that they didn't want to carry on with him. So I thought he's going to be fighting a losing battle there. I know it's kind of the wheels have come off a little bit at the end of the season. I think they finished 14th or 15th. But I think to get that run that he did at the start and the middle of the season, especially considering the amount of players they've not only lost through having to sell them in the summer and not really replaced, everyone's had an injury crisis, but Wolves have had no players, it feels, all year. And to get the performances out of them, to get kind of wrestle a positive season, or at least an upward-looking season out of that Wolves side, I think it deserves massive credit for him. And I think year on year, like, he's just showing that he's a good coach. Like, there was a bit of eyebrows raised when he came in at Bournemouth. Did a really good job there. It's like, oh, well, mate, it's not going to work. Lightning doesn't strike twice. And he's coming to a squad that's got no players. Can't do it again. He's done it again. Like, I think he's showing his chops as a really good manager. And I think if he keeps it up, it'll be a bigger job for him next. Like, maybe maybe a Villa, like if Emery leaves, or maybe even like a Newcastle or something. Like if he keeps showing that he's got the chops, maybe someone will take a big jump on him. I think he's done a really good job there.
I think what he needs is somewhere that's a little bit more stable, because the noise is coming. Like, I think he's even referenced this himself about I think he had a few grumblings in January about not getting players in. He had a few sort of things to say about needing to be backed in the summer, and it's sort of well known or well documented the Wolves are going to have to sell one or two of their big players in the summer. Like,
did a Scott Parker, did he? My players aren't good enough.
I don't think it. Yeah, not in the same way that Parker did, where it's like, we're shit. Like, but like you say, I think he's just aware. Like you say, they've lost a lot of players and not really replaced them, and they're going to have to sell a couple of players. Like I say, Neto's been linked to a move away, and Cunha's been really good this year. Max Kilman's a really well thought of centre back that could be on his way out. So. And it's unclear how much money Wolves, or how much that money they bring in, Wolves are actually going to be able to spend. So I feel like early prediction, I feel like Wolves might be in a bit of a spot of bother next year, just because of not being able to adequately replace players that leave. Whereas I feel like his next job is really important if he does ever leave Wolves, in a sense he just needs somewhere where he can just sort of be there for like 3-4 years and just sort of do his thing, like a Brighton or I don't know, like a Palace, or like if Glasner ever moves on. It's a club like that who's sort of not really in any danger of going down, where he can just sort of settle in for 4 or 5 years and really like just get his imprint on a team, and then we can see where he goes.
Talks of Thomas Frank to Bayern, so maybe in there.
Yeah,
maybe a show. But it feels like everyone. I think I've got a few missed calls from Bayern, to be honest. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, to be fair, yeah.
They're just trying to get anyone in at the minute. There's a couple of other managers that I think.
I'm available.
There's another couple of managers I think do deserve a mention. I kind of touched on Villa there. Done an amazing job. Unai Emery definitely banished his ghosts of Arsenal in the Premier League. Played some phenomenal football all year. Yeah, they got battered last day of the season by the aforementioned Glasner. It was another one. I think it's just been too short for him to be manager of the year. He's had a really good turnaround. But yeah, what he's achieved with that Villa squad, as poor as a lot of the teams in that top half of the table have been, and we've talked about Chelsea, United, and Spurs, even kind of Spurs in it, obviously. You've still got to take your opportunities. You've still got to get the team playing, and it's still a team that is in its growing period. I feel, and I feel like Europa League would have been their goal this year. So the fact that they've not only been challenging for the top four, but keeping pace and playing good football all the way through it, I think it's a really good job, and I think Emery deserves a lot of props for that. And equally, kind of getting a run of form out of nowhere, Dyche at Everton.
Yeah.
Started off the season well, got hit with started off the season pretty well, got hit with the points deduction, wrestled those points back, got hit with another points deduction, wrestled those points back, then started to lose a bit of form. He put on his tracksuit, and they got the points they needed to stay up. And I think it was a very... The thing is with Everton, they were playing some really good football. I don't know how much of the Everton you watched the first half of the season. They were playing really good football, creating a ton of chances, and their players were just allergic to the back of the net. They just couldn't finish anything. And I think he took that and went, okay, well, second half of the season, we just need to be a bit more stout. We'll kind of play a bit more kind of Burnley ball a little bit. I mean, we're still a lot more expansive, and they've got some really talented players there. But kind of to get him over the line, and I think just the job that he's done in the situation he's been in, I think has been outstanding for Sean Dyche. And another manager, I think, kind of goes under the radar of deserving more props than he gets. He's a really good manager, and another manager that maybe if Everton can get their shit together, or another team that will allow him to be in a bit more of a stable environment with a bit of investment. Because as stable as the environment was at Burnley, they never invested. No. And Everton have invested a little bit, but they're an absolute basket case. Maybe he just needs that right club for him to really flourish and step on and show what he can do. So I don't know who my manager of the year would be for me. I think it's kind of got to be Emery for what he's achieved with Villa and what he's brought through. The other ones were kind of honourable mentions and do deserve the props that they get. But what Emery has done, and not only, like I say, in achieving it, but playing some really good football as well. Like whenever I've watched
Yeah.
Villa this year, it's always been an entertaining game.
Yeah, I think Emery's been absolutely fantastic. Like the one disappointment, obviously, being the Conference League. Obviously, not for everyone. But like, I think to give them some mitigation, I think they were having some issues of injury around the time. Like, I think losing Boubacar, they lost Boubacar Kamara like earlier in the season, and that's been a big loss for them. They've had defensive injuries as well, like everyone has, obviously. But yeah, no, they've been great, consistently brilliant all year, fully deserving of the top four. And like you say, never once looked like it was going to fall off. Remember, like we had a couple of years about Leicester being in there all season, and it gets to the last month and they just don't win another game all season. It's never even looked like it's been a possibility for Villa. Like they've been fantastic, and I'm yeah, just really happy for them to get that full spot and get in the Champions League next year and see what they can do. It's obviously been an interesting summer for them, but they've definitely got the right man at the helm, I think, by the sounds of it. And he's just signed a new contract as well.
Signing a new contract. It seems like the owners there really like aren't a oh god, what we're gonna do now. Like they've been planning for this. Like you got to bring into the fact as well. Like what an absolute dumpster they were when he came in. Like after Gerrard had been there, they weren't winning. They were bottom half of the table. They were like in a relegation fight, I think.
He was 17th for him.
Yeah.
Like,
so he came in, turned it around. I think they in the time he was there, they were the best form in the league. He's followed it into the second year. It's going to be, like I said with Newcastle at the start of the season, I think it's going to be a big wake-up call in terms of the squad depth next year with the Champions League. But if they can bring in the right players, I've seen today, I think they're bringing in Ross Barkley as a midfield option. Like, if they can get a bit of depth, a little bit of quality, keep hold of their really good players. I know Ollie Watkins is going to be in a lot of people's shopping lists this year. If they can keep hold of him, they could have a really good year next year. Now, I don't think challenging for the title year, but maybe kind of knockouts of the Champions League, pushing for the top four again, top six.
Yeah,
and just something to build on. So, yeah, I've got to give it Emery for that. He's had a fantastic year. Are there any other managers you've had your eye on that have done really well?
I'll just give a special mention to Rob Edwards. I think he's been an absolute credit to Luton. I know they've obviously gone down, but like again, we've said so many times, we've given him his flowers loads over the course of the season. But it's weird, even though they've gone down, it still feels like an achievement that like. Even though they were basically gone last day of the season, to take it to the last day of the season where it was like mathematically possible, you know, a ridiculous goal swing, obviously. But yeah, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. I think
he'll have a Premier League job next year, I think.
Yeah, just guide for Luton, really. Like, I really didn't want him to go down, but we'll get onto that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Next time we'll go on to signing of the season. I had to like rack my brains for who actually got signed in the summer because I couldn't remember. It feels like 3 seasons ago. A few really good ones. Like I've been really impressed with Doku at Man City. I think there were a few eyebrows raised. Like, what could he step up to it? He's been arguably, other than Phil Foden, one of their most dangerous players. Whenever he's on, like, he's really direct. He creates chances. He causes havoc. I give it 18 months until Pep Guardiola beats that out of him with a slipper.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's like watching Jack Grealish at Man City now. He just takes it. It's a couple of steps back to the defender. It's like what? Can't be running at people.
It's probably why I'm not that bothered about if Paqueta goes there, because like, well, he's not going to be as fun as he was when he was with us. So,
oh no, can't be passing forwards, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
No, back to the keeper. But yeah, I think he deserves a shout because he was a bit of an under the radar player that I think's done really well. Speaking of Kudus, speaking of West Ham, Kudus I think at West Ham's been great this year. Took a few weeks or a month or two to kind of get his feet. Since then, has looked phenomenal. Like every bit that the hype from the World Cup and from Ajax as well, obviously. I saw him at the World Cup. I thought this kid is an absolute live wire. Looks fantastic, but international football shite in it. So like, you never know how good he's going to be actually in a real game. The fact that he managed to do it in a David Moyes team as well deserves extra credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scored some great goals, played some great football.
I say, we think he's played like he's playing like a weird like right back / attacker.
Yeah.
We're doing pass halfway, like, son. Come on.
Yeah. We were saying earlier, like, Haaland's in the wrong team. He was like at least under the wrong coach, not necessarily the wrong team.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the most exciting players I've ever seen play for West Ham, and I've seen like some Payet and Joe Cole and people like that. He's just, every time he gets the ball and runs at people, you know he's going to do something. And one of the biggest compliments I can give him is he'll have games where like it's not really quite coming off for him, like, you know, misplaced pass or like a shot gets blocked or he cross doesn't quite land. He never stops though. His head never drops. He just keeps going and going and going. I think that's why he's been able to contribute so many goals and assists this season, because he has. Paqueta, for example, he's a great player, but he's murder for just sort of drifting out of games if it's not going his way. He just fades. And like you see so many players like that over the years, whereas Kudus,
he's get disheartened with it and like, oh, well, it's not working for tonight. I'll try again next time. Whereas he'll just keep trying the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, and not even the same thing. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work.
I just mean like keep trying different.
Yeah. But it's like, oh, I've tried cutting inside. I'm not going to enjoy. Fuck it, I'll take him on the outside. See how that goes. Like, it's just he's got a lot more room to develop, and that's why part of the reason I'm looking forward to next season under a new coach who's a little bit more attack minded. I think he's gonna, especially if Paqueta's gone, he'll be like one of the main men in the team, like him and Bowen. It's going to be exciting to see how what the next level he can go to is, and he's not going to be here for much longer. So
enjoy it while he is.
Yeah, exactly.
There's actually a name that I forgot to put on here that I definitely intended to. Declan Rice in sign of the season. Like, as we've already waxed lyrically about him plenty. He's just improved Man City massively. Improved Arsenal massively. Allowed them to go toe to toe with Man City is what I was going to say. For the title, didn't come off for him, but I think he's massively improved. Not just Arsenal, but as a player as well. He's looking genuinely world class these days.
Yeah.
So you can't really. I said it earlier in the season that he's been so good that the record transfer fee doesn't get mentioned anymore.
No,
like he's just ridiculously good. But I'm gonna have to give it to someone I did mention earlier, Sir Cole Palmer, who I think kind of. I like the amount that was paid for him. I think everyone was a bit surprised. Like, oh, this guy who barely played for Man City. Like, yeah, he had a good preseason, and I think he scored in the Super Cup. I think the UEFA Super Cup.
Yeah, and the Community Shield as well.
Yeah. It's like, okay, 60 million or 45. I can't remember how much it was. It was a decent.
Like 40. Yeah, like 45 million. I think it was.
It's still a decent whack of cash for a 21-year-old who's been basically not playing for Man City. Especially go into that Chelsea side that's had so much money spent on it as well, in a position where they've already invested so much money. It felt like, are they just doing it because they can? But fair play to the kid. He has kind of just gone, no, this is my team now, and taken that mantle and the pressure with it. And not only that, being the only player that seems to be performing in a really poor year, like he's dragged them. Like the fact that they finished sixth is basically down to him, because they could have been bottom half if it wasn't for them this season. I know they found form at the end of the season. Other players have started contributing. Nicholas Jackson started finding the back of the net, and even like Mudrik's putting in good performances. The midfield looks solid. Defense finally seems to kind of, figured out who each other are. It's you. Yeah, I'm not marking you. Okay. But I think the reason they've been put in a position to even get that high up the table is because of him. I think he's been outstanding, not only in just his return, in terms of his assists and his goals and stuff, but like his mentality in the pitch, like just some of the first time passes and like the vision to be able to do what he does on the pitch. There's just like some ridiculous things I've seen him do where he'll just take it first time, spin on a dime, and play a pinpoint driven ball 40 yards across the pitch onto someone's toe that he's not even looked at. It's like, how do you do that? That is insane, like insane quality. I think he's a wonderful footballer. I genuinely hope he goes to the Euros with England, because even if he's not starting, him coming off the bench, that's gonna, well, if they know who he is, that'll scare people. Because he's such an important player. Such an influential player on the pitch, so it's got to go to him for me. I don't know if there's any other players that you can think of. I can't really remember many players that have joined clubs this year, to be honest.
No, like I can't. I'd love to give it to Kudus, but like, yeah, you can't. you can't compare his season to Cole Palmer's. Like I say, he's been far and away. I think him and Rice are the sort of two most impactful signings of the season. Like in terms of the impact they've had on their teams, I don't think there's really been anyone else who's had as much of a positive impact. I'll give a special mention though, like an honorable mention to Ross Barkley. Like I know obviously Luton didn't stay up, but like I thought, everyone kind of thought Ross Barkley was done, and that kind of cemented that by joining Luton. But just it's not even like he's sort of been an okay player in a bad team and it's made him stand out. He's genuinely been fantastic, like super influential. It's not a coincidence that when he came off against us last week, Luton collapsed and we had a much easier time against them. And he's got himself a move to Villa by the sounds of it. Obviously, had a loan spell there a few years ago under Dean Smith, and it was Dean Smith, wasn't it? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
But now he's actually gone under a competent manager. It'll be a very useful squad player for them, I think. And I actually think he makes more sense in that midfield than someone like Tielemans does, who I never really understood. Never really felt like he fit Villa's side that much. But I think Barkley will definitely be a really strong addition for them.
Barkley feels like one of those players who he obviously had tons of talent when he was a kid at Everton. The move to Chelsea was just a bad idea. But it feels like almost the fact that he's got so many more like miles in his legs, in his 30s and going into his 30s, and he's now got the nous and the know-how and like he's got a grown-up brain in there now. Like, he just looks so composed on the ball all the time. And, yeah, I think he could have been a really good pickup for most top-half sides, if not top-6 sides, even as a squad player. I'd have liked him at United, to be honest. Like, we're missing those kind of players who can sit in a deep position and control the ball. The fact that we're relying on Kobe Mainoo to do it, it's kind of, as an 18-year-old kid, just turned 19, I think. Like, that shows exactly the kind of holes that we've got in our squad. So, yeah, that's a really good shout to him. I kind of forgot that he joined them this year, to be honest. And it was again, like, eyebrows were raised a little bit when they signed him, because it's like, oh, that's the guy that used to be in the Chelsea reserves, right? He's done, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he just had a jolly in France for a year, like. But he's had a really good season, so yeah, fair play for bringing that up. Goal of the season. I've been kind of taking the lead on these. I don't know if you've got any mentions that you want there. Yeah, I'll let you go if you've got yours there.
I've genuinely. I know we're going to talk about the Garnacho goal.
Yeah, don't
obviously.
worry, guys. We'll talk.
I'm going to give a special mention to Rashford against City, because it was an absolute thunder bastard. I love those types of goals.
Out of nowhere as well. It's like, just have it.
One of them, just a proper shot in anger, and it's just wonderful, like, just perfect. And I also really love McAllister's one against I can't remember who it was against, but McAllister scored an absolute worldie.
Yeah, I remember the one you mean. I can't remember who it was against either.
Fulham or Wolves or something like that. I've got to give a mention to Mo Kudus at the weekend, though. Like, not only score a bicycle kick, but to set yourself up for a bicycle kick. Like, when the ball comes in, he sort of goes, fuck it, flicks it up himself, and then just bicycle and hammers it into the back of the net. Like, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and also, like, he made it 2-1, that, didn't it? It's like, okay, after being done, it's like, oh, maybe we can get back into this. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah.
It's 3-1.
Yeah.
But just that slight moment of belief.
I think Gary Neville summed up best by just going, oh. Yeah, like, I know Garnacho is probably going to be everyone's pick. I'm biased. I don't care. Very much got my Clarenby tinted glasses on. I just think the skill to set it up for yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a congested penalty area, to flick it up over some defenders and then pull that off is just. I can't remember seeing anything like that really before. So, yeah, I'm going to give it to Kudus for that one, but I understand the other shout for Garnacho, because that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Garnacho one is it's the contact that he made with it as well, because the amount of times that you're seeing over a kick, especially something from across, and it's like everyone was comparing it to the Rooney one. It's like Rooney's comes off his shin. The thing with the Rooney one though is it's the importance of it, and I think you've kind of got to you've got to take the importance of the goal into consideration as well. When you're talking about kind of like the best goals of the year, but just for the sheer ridiculousness of how the hell has he got that high up in the air, made that good a connection, put it in the top bins back from where, like, the other side of the goal. It's like, it's just got to be that. I do want to give a mention to Michael Olise against Man United as well, where it felt like, I mean, scoring against Man United isn't that hard, but he did dribble the entire length of the pitch, cut inside, and was one right in the top bins, which was outstanding. I think in that game as well, there was like 3 incredible goals. Where it felt like everyone was just trying to have a goal of the year competition between them. So yeah, but I've got to give a shout out to that. But yeah, I think it's got to be Garnacho. I don't even know who won the match of the day one, but I assume it was that.
Yeah, I think it might have been, yeah. I don't think they've included Kudus as one. I was like, great, cool.
Can't win anything this year.
Yeah.
You've won a new manager. That's all you're having.
Yeah, that's the best.
What do West Ham fans even want?
Exactly.
We'll move on to a couple. Biggest overachiever and biggest underachiever. Me, myself, overachiever. we've already mentioned him earlier. Bournemouth, Iraola, like going from what I expected to be, if not relegation, a relegation fight, to playing some brilliant football, getting 20 goals out of out of Dam Solanke, playing some great stuff, imprinting themselves on the Premier League as a dangerous side. And once they found that form, have been pretty consistent with it as well. So I think in terms of overachiever, you could put Villa in there as well. But I think from the building blocks of last year, everyone had fighting for a top six at least. I think maybe even top four. And I just think the overperformance of Bournemouth has been really good. For me, underachiever VAR. It's been so bad that it might not be here next year. That's how bad it's been. Like, not so bad that they're changing the rules on it or they're changing the process of it. So bad that they've gone, we'd be better without this. Let's just fuck it off.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a genuine consideration. I maintain VAR would be fine if it was used in a different way, but in its current iteration, it's just ridiculous. It's not even like the lack of consistency is the thing for me, and it's not even start of the season versus the end of the season. It's game to game in the same week, or week after week. It's like one thing's a handball, one thing's not. One's a penalty, one's not. One's a foul, one's not. It's like, there's just no. There's nothing for it, and I've said it all along. I think the way you make it work is you have offside, goal line that are actually the referee's told.
Yeah.
Anything else, the referee, or if someone like socks someone and behind him, like he's just cut him. Like he's
the Diego Costa.
Yeah. The only anything else, the ref should go, I want to see that again.
Yeah.
If he sees a penalty and he thinks it's a dead on penalty, fair enough, and the game goes on. If he sees a coming together, like the perfect example would be the Gordon Newcastle against United. Yeah. If he doesn't give it, and then he sees his socks torn, he's like, you know what, can I have a look at that again? Like go over to the side, then make another decision, make an informed decision, rather than having someone say you need to go and look at this or this is what happened. Just say, I want to see that again. Don't have anyone in that booth telling him anything. It's like, here's the replay. You've got two different angles there. You've got a minute. And then it gives the referees the option to referee the game and also own their decisions. Whereas now It's like it's this kind of coin flip of, oh well, he told me this and they told me that, and I'm getting all this kind of different information. You've got 7 people talking over each other in the booth. The great process guys, like all that kind of nonsense. Like, just stop that. Just let the referee make the decision. And if he wants to see it again, let him see it. Like, that's...
Yeah.
I don't see... I mean, there'll still be bad decisions, but at least the referee would own it.
But that's the thing with the inconsistency is you'll get, like, say, you got 6 or 7 people trying to come to a decision over a subjective call. And that's why there's inconsistencies, because what one person sees as a handball or a penalty 1 week or one game, the other person for the other game won't see it the same way, and that's why I'm fully at the point now, because I don't have any faith in implementing a more sensible way of doing it like you suggested, where I'm just like, get rid of it. I think the reasoning that Wolves put out the other day, I agree with pretty much every point. It's crap for the match going fans. It's creating this bullshit thing every single week of it's corruption. Everyone's against us. It is genuinely killing my enjoyment of football. And I didn't think it would get to that point with VAR for me. But with every week, it feels like we're talking less and less about football and more about VAR decisions. And it's just boring. To the point where it's next season when we're doing this, unless it's like a Liverpool Spurs level type hell, I don't really want to discuss VAR decisions next season, because it's just what more can we say? It's crap. So yeah, I'm with you on that for biggest underachiever for the season. Overachiever for me, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. It's sort of tongue in cheek, but it's also not. I'm going to go for Ange. Now hear me out. I said that I went on a bit of a thing on Twitter about this after they lost to City. It's time to stop considering Spurs or naming Spurs as a top 6 club. It's time. It's done. Because why? What is genuinely the reasoning? They've not, I said it the other way, they have all those clubs, They haven't won anything. They've mounted 2 title challenges in the part, and that was what, like in 10 years ago, or like just less than 10
There
years
was a
ago.
second
Right?
one. I remember the Leicester one where they finished third.
Oh yeah, there was that. Yeah, and I think there might have been another one. I can't remember, but like I think it was 2. There could have even been 1, and they qualified for the Champions League a bunch of times. Whoop-de-woo. Now, like the fact that Spurs went on a really good run at the start of the season, and there were genuinely pundits who were very well paid going on Sky Sports and BT saying, "So what do you reckon, guys? Spurs for the title this year?" As if it was a serious like. If that was any other club, if that was Villa who had a similar run, would they have been saying that about Villa? No. When Villa were only 3 points off the top in Christmas, everyone was going like, "I'm having a great season." Never going to win the league though, no chance. But with Spurs, because of this perception of them being a Big Six club, oh yeah, they actually could. They were never going to. And the reason I'm putting Andrews maybe not the biggest overachiever, but the reason I think Andrews had overachieved slightly this year, because when you actually look at the Spurs squad compared to a lot of the teams in that top 6, it's not actually that good. Genuinely, they've got a handful of really good players. James Maddison, when he fancies it, is really good. Vicario's been a great goalkeeper. Udogi's, when fit, was actually one of the best left backs in the league. Romero, when he's not trying to murder people, is a really good centre back. And Van der Ven, actually, that's one actually for signing of the season. Actually, but yeah, well, I say for signing of the season, I think Van der Ven's been quality for Spurs.
Oh,
this
actually,
year.
yeah, it's
Generally fantastic. But Son's on his last legs. They're relying on Brennan Johnson's got like the worst decision making in the final third I think I've seen from any attacking player this season.
What is it about Welsh right wingers and their inability to make a he's just Dan James too. That's
yeah, like and then you're relying on Timo Werner coming in January to maybe get you some goals. Like
relying on Timo Werner to get you goals in the Premier League.
Exactly. Like, but this is what I'm saying. Like Basuma was all right for a few months. He went off the ball massively. Sar's okay, but this. And then you bring in Højbjerg and Benteke, who are not the right type of midfielders for what Ange wants to do. So the players actually got them within the conversation of top 4, and they finished 5th. It's a fucking brilliant season for Tottenham. I can't believe that. Like, I'm going to come across as hypocritical here because I get funny about people moaning at me for moaning about my manager, right? And I think most of the Spurs fans, want to say, are happy with Ange this season. And obviously, every manager's going to have their things that annoy you, like whether it be substitutions or like lack of plan B or anything like that. But you've had a wicked season. Like, I thought Spurs were going to be mid-table this year. And the fact he's got him into 5th, like, within a few games of getting Champions League football, I think with the squad he's got, I think he's overachieved. And for that reason, I think, yeah, we need to stop with... Just make it a top 5, a big 5. This big 6 nonsense.
Why does it need to be a big anything?
Just, yeah, like, I know, yeah.
Like, I mean, to be fair, like, I saw your tweet, and when you put it out, well, what are, like, Spurs' top 6 finishes in the last 10, 15 years? To be fair, they've only finished out of it twice. So, like, if you are actually going for the actual Big 6, then they're there. But not that that's an achievement. Like, finishing 6th in the league isn't an achievement. Like,
no.
Like, Man United it's the rich 6, like, if anything. Like, because they're the ones that keep getting in Europe. They're the ones that keep all the money. They're the ones with all the dosh. But, like, Man United aren't top... they're one of the Big 6. We've not really done anything in the last few years. Liverpool have won 1 Premier League in 35 years. Granted, they've been battling away at the top, but like, what have they been consistently winning? It's Man City. It's the big one. Yeah. Like, it's the big one, and then everyone else is fighting for scraps. That's why we're turning into the Liga, or we're turning into the Bundesliga. Like, it's going to take a monumental effort from any other team just to win it, let alone consistently win it and go on challenges and A-B it between each other for years.
Like, if it's just quality of the team, and it's you want to call it the big 3 or whatever. Like, if you want to put Arsenal, Liverpool, and City in their own group, I know City obviously, you know, in their own sort of little group, but like just in terms of like how close it was for most of the season, those 3 have been the best 3 teams in the league for the last like 2 years, let's say, and before that it was just Liverpool and City. But like, yeah, this idea that like I said, this whole branding that the Premier League have adopted, or like Sky have adopted, where it's like, oh, it's the Big 6. It's like when they've been, like I say, Man United have been underachieving for years now. Chelsea have for the last couple of seasons. Spurs, I mean, if you want to call it underachievement, I think they're just doing what they do.
Yeah,
yeah, like within their means, right? Like
the real the real thing for me was when it was the whole Super League discussion. It was like that Leo meme of like. It's like, what's Spurs doing in there? How did they get in there? What?
I'm generally not. Yeah, so I'm generally not saying this just to dig Spurs out because I'm a West Ham fan. Like, I'm generally making a serious point here. Like, it's baffling to me that like we the media in this country sort of look at Tottenham as like a seriously big team that could like compete for a league title when they haven't competed for a league title in God knows how long. And even when they did, it was an anomaly, really, in terms of their
and they couldn't even beat Leicester, and they're in the Championship now.
Exactly. So I think Andrew's done a very good job. Maybe biggest overachiever is a bit of, like I say, it's a bit tongue in cheek, but I had to make the point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like it. We'll move on to best coaching performance. Now, that could be over the year or an individual game. I mentioned earlier, I think Arsenal have been the most consistent, good team in the league. Obviously, I think Man City have shone brighter, but also been pretty dire at times. So I'm going to have to say Arteta over the course of the season. I think he's had Arsenal playing really, not just kind of attacking football, which is what they were great at last year, but as I was saying earlier, like that winning, we're going to win a game that we shouldn't be winning, or we're going to get over the line in a game that we just, last year they wouldn't have won. Like there was a lot of that at the start of the season, late goals or 1-0, 2-1 wins, where last year it'd have fallen apart, I think, or the year previous. So I think for that, Arteta's got to be in there. I'm going to put in individual game though. Sean Dyche, Everton v Liverpool. Oh. Yeah. I wish I was an Everton fan for that game. Like I was watching, I was getting excited watching it, and not just because it's against Liverpool, but like just the energy of it. It was like that was fantastic. What a game that was! And Liverpool battered them, I know, but they lost. It's great. And they basically ended their title challenge as well. It was like the double whammy. It was fantastic. So I've got to give Dyche that, and obviously, like I said before, I think he's one of the managers of the year, and over the course of the season. And this is where I'm going to give Glasner his flowers for the year. Late shout for him being one of the coaches of the year, because since he's come in, I think they've been one of the, not just the best teams, but most entertaining teams to watch as well. Like, similar to the influence that Emery had on Villa last year, actually. Like came into a team that was floundering. Obviously, they had a load of injuries, but like got the best players in, gave them that bit of belief. Mateta with his shirt tucked in, like he just can't stop scoring. Like they should have signed that one earlier. Like so I think he's just been great. And I know you've said previously, like when you played him in Europe, the way that he had, it was Frankfurt, wasn't it? Like the way he had him playing was really good, and it's kind of just like picked up on that in there. So like if they can get a few players, if they can keep hold of Elise and Eze, or at least one of them.
I think keep one of them.
Yeah, and then add to that squad, bring in a few players for him. They could be a really entertaining team next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just reminded me actually as a honourable mention for signing in the season. I know it came in January, but Adam Wharton's been.
That's a really good shout.
Yeah,
there's shouts for him to be on the plane of the Euros for England. Like,
I do find out if any English player that plays well, like, should he be on the plane?
I mean, to be fair,
necessarily.
He is a midfielder, and the only midfielder we have is Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham. So
we are lacking. Yeah, I wouldn't be against it. But no, Glasner's been great. I think I would also give it to Arteta over the course of the season. I think he's improved more as a manager, shown a lot more composure, apart from when he's suffered absolutely head loss against Newcastle. But apart from that, I think he's come on leaps and bounds, and I think he will win a league with Arsenal. He's just got to wait for Pep to leave, basically. Yeah. In terms of individual performance, I do want to give a special mention. Actually, I haven't praised David Moyes for a long time in this podcast. So I'm gonna do it now. I thought West Ham against Arsenal at the Emirates, where we beat them 2-0, I think is one of the best defensive displays I've seen from a team this season. Like where I've looked at a game, gone defensively in terms of how we're organised and how we did our jobs, flawless, like absolutely flawless. Bit fortunate with our first goal, and obviously the second one was from a set piece. But like we've waxed lyrical about how good Arsenal have been this season, and they just didn't look like they could have played for another 90 minutes and they wouldn't have scored against us. Like. That was like the peak of David Moyes' tactical setup this season, and it was at the Emirates. So they beat us 6-0 a month later. But if they'd have won that, they'd have won the league. So exactly.
I mean, if we're going for a performance from our own team, I've got to go for the 4-3 after extra time, United Liverpool, for the best coaching performance, because. Who thought that playing an injured Bruno Fernandes at centre back would be the tactical key that would unlock Liverpool?
He's a genius.
He's a genius. He is a genius. Very tongue in cheek. I think that was my favourite game. That's fair. Not just favourite game because I've not put favourite game of the season actually.
That's a good. Yeah, we'll end on that one.
Yeah.
One in mind.
Yeah, we'll do that in a minute when you've had a chance to think about it. But for me, yeah, that was one of the games of the season. Biggest disappointment for me, Forest not getting relegated. After all of their bullshit the last few months, all of their, just threats to the Premier League, all their whinging, all their crying, I would have laughed heartily if they ended up getting relegated, and it'd have meant that Luton stayed up, which would have been nice.
Yeah,
so for me, that's my biggest disappointment.
Full agreement.
Yeah,
full agreement.
Biggest surprise: Roy Keane calling Erling Haaland a League Two player. It didn't just surprise me. I think it surprised everybody.
Yeah,
we've mentioned it in the past. Like the actual point that he made after it, I kind of don't disagree with. I think League Two's very harsh, but like,
yeah,
he's not an elite hold-up player. But the thing, like I've mentioned earlier, he's not given the chance to show that he is, or like given the opportunity to work on it. Like he's just hanging around waiting to toe poke it in at the back post. It's like he could be so much more if he played for a team that had an idea of what a transitional moment is. Like I said Liverpool. Imagine him up front at Real at the minute. Oh my word!
Oh. Yeah, it'd be game over for everyone. The biggest surprise for me, I think Brighton being as crap as they have been, especially second half of the year. Like, I know, again, loads of injuries, so there's mitigation there, but they have been pretty toothless for a while.
De Zerbi's been found out.
Yeah. Palace not finishing 14th was a bit of a shock. When they finished 10th, like that's incredible. Like, fair play. Yeah, I think, but for me, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give it to Dortmund reaching the Champions League final because I don't think you would have found a single person predicting that at the start of the season.
Yeah.
So I think, and also, yeah, it's similar mold. Villa not winning the Conference League. Like, I was like, that's a nailed on one. But yeah,
Liverpool not winning the Europa. Actually, just getting absolutely shagged out of it by Atlanta. That was fantastic.
They got skamackered.
Yeah, you sold him so that could happen. That's like it was worth it.
Last for
Yeah. 5D chess. That's fantastic. Well, we did mention it. We did say within game of the season for me is that not just game of the season. That might be like the most I've enjoyed a football match as a Man United fan since Paris. In the Champions League,
fair.
like that first few months that Ole was there, like it's been. I think that just kind of shows how dull it's been for quite a while. But that game was just phenomenal. It was, in terms of, I say this all the time, it was a terrible football match. Like, but God, it was entertaining. I was like, well, that was the amount of times I see a dreadful football match, which is really fun. Like it's usually a Spurs game. Like there's. Very low quality football, very high entertainment, and that was it's just Old Trafford knocking Liverpool out of the cup to end this quadruple that they just ended up winning nothing of for the Jurgen Klopp, wankathon farewell tour. We're not going to go into that, I promise. That was like the high of the season, and what has been a season of just low. It's not a lot of lows. It's just been low. The peak of that game, and then back to low, and then however badly we get beaten on Sunday at the FA Cup or Saturday, whenever it is. I might not even watch it.
No, fair. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. I think I've got two games in mind, and they both involve Chelsea. The game against you guys, the 4-3. Palmer scored the two late goals. Sorry to remind you of it.
Two in injury time.
Was it 4-3 or 5-4 or something? Like it was something.
It was 4-3.
It was 4-3.
We were 3-2 up going into added time, and they just scored 2 goals. And we just let them.
It was an absolutely bonkers game. But for me, in terms
another
of
game that was low quality football, high quality entertainment.
Yeah. But I think the one that takes the cake for me in terms of like that, it wasn't actually a great game of football, but in terms of how much enjoyment and entertainment I got watching it, has to be Spurs against Chelsea when Spurs went down to 9.
Oh, and they played in their
playing the high line.
Yeah.
And it was just the most. Because it was like players dropping like flies. You got 2 red cards for Spurs, and like Chelsea were getting about 80 chances and couldn't score any of them. Like it was.
I was gutted when they actually finished one of them.
Yeah, I know it kind of killed a little bit, but like in terms of like I can't remember watching a game and just sort of being like, "What is?" I was just giggling. Like for most of that second, I was just giggling throughout most of it. Like it's just fucking bonkers.
I actually
so good
because that was mentioned on Monday Night Football, wasn't it? That game. Like,
Yeah.
so I went back and watched the highlights of it, and something like in the 90th minute or 80th minute or whatever it was, like with 9 men, and they're literally like parked on the halfway line, but the gap between the defense and the forwards was about 3 yards.
Yeah.
It's just a line of white players in white shirts. It's like, what? I've never seen anything like this before. And it was just like pinging it over the top and missing every chance.
So good. It was so, and Spurs, obviously because Chelsea were chasing it, Spurs were getting chances as well.
Yeah.
So I think they came really close to leveling it at 2-2 and stuff, and it was just like, oh, it was so good. It was just like, yeah, like I said, the most fun I've had watching a football match this season. It was hilarious.
Prime Barclays entertainment.
Yeah. Can I just before we end, because I did put in the running order for the listeners. I did put a running order of like funniest moment of the season. I think we both sort of struggled to think of one, but there was one that popped into my head when I was watching the West Ham City game on the weekend, and it's something I've noticed more and more this season that Gary Neville does, which is whenever a manager ever shows like a fragment of like emotion on the touchline, you'll just hear Gary Neville go, "He snapped." He does it every single week. Like it could be a manager just going like, "He snapped." It's like, Gary, calm down, mate.
And there's also one that I've noticed him doing all the time. Is where he goes, "Oh, I don't like that." Oh no, I don't like that. Like it'll be like whenever there's a big game or something, like someone kicks off or like something's like, oh no, I don't like when he gets a replay of a bad tackle or something. It's like moral high ground Neville. Oh no, I don't like that.
He's quickly been turning into like a David Brent of punditry. He's so funny.
He is a caricature of himself, isn't he?
Yeah. And I will say as well, it's not like, yeah, it's sort of related, but like I don't know if you watch the Overlap podcast, like with him, Roy Keane and writing stuff. Roy Keane said something on the most recent one. I was pissing myself. They were talking about, have that chat at the start of the podcast stuff about just nothing.
Yeah.
And I was talking about Elvis for some reason. And I was talking about the Elvis film, and one of them was going, like, I think it was Ian Wright going, I was really sad, when you see him, like, he's really overweight, and he's like, oh, he's struggling to breathe. Roy Keane just goes, that was never against West Brom. Like, come on, Elvis, off you come.
I'll tell you what, though, like I do really. It's a great podcast. Like, if anyone doesn't listen to that, the Overlap pod, it's really genuinely really really good. I'll tell you what was nice though. Like, I think they had one of their guests dropped out, so they decided to interview Gary Neville, and it was a really good episode. It was a really good episode, but it was also really nice to kind of actually have people go, you do know how good you were, right? Like, because I feel like he's made himself this joke of a player. Like, oh, I was never that good. I had Beckham and Rio and all this. It's like, no, mate, you were really good. And it's like they almost like
that's right back in the country.
It was almost like an intervention. It's like, you do realize how good he used to be, right? He was like, fine, yeah, I won 11 titles and all. It's like, all right, okay. It was nice actually. It was a really good interview that. If anyone's not seen it, you should go and check it out.
Especially like just because Roy Keane is just like hilarious on it. Roy Keane is so fucking funny on that podcast.
I want to see Roy Keane and Ian Wright doing like a road trip documentary.
Yeah, man.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Like Ian Wright's great. Ian Wright just gassing everyone up who comes. Is, oh, you look amazing. It's
I'd love to have a friend like Ian. I think everyone needs a friend like Ian Wright.
Yeah. Well, actually, I tweeted out from the wrong Twitter account, actually, from that one yesterday. Going,
it's fun.
It was the it was the obviously the last episode that was going to be on Match of the Day, and I've just seen like this outpouring of love and all these clips of Ian Wright. It's like, if you don't love Ian Wright, there is something wrong with you. Like, that is a character flaw in you.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Wrighty, and if you don't, you're wrong.
Yeah, he's just a pure parted human being. Like, love him, absolutely love him.
Fantastic.
So,
well,
just don't go to TalkSport, Ian.
Yeah, don't do that, please. Well, on that note, we'll leave it there. It's been quite a long episode with a wrap up of the year. I think we've touched on everything that we did, and I didn't even go on a rant about Jurgen Klopp leaving. So it's a win-win all around. Join me on my streams for that. Thank you for tuning in, guys. We will be doing some more of these over through the Euros, looking into it, reacting to what's happened in the week and all that kind of stuff. But if you're here for the Premier League coverage, we will be back before the start of next season to hopefully see some positive action from both of our teams leading into the next year. But thank you for joining us on this over the year, and we will be back next time. Take it easy, guys. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.